Hey everybody, what's going on? Rob Cesternino, and I'm back with a double exit interview here today on our YouTube channel. Thanks for being here with us. We are going to be talking with both of the players who got voted out and blindsided out of the game. First, we're going to have Tim, and then we're going to have Soda right here, all in one jumbo exit interview, double exit interview. Of course, you can listen to the podcast of Rob the Podcast anytime at robiswebsite.com/subscribe. We've also got Stephen Fishbach coming up later on today. So it's going to be a jam-packed Thursday. Make sure you're following everything we're doing here on Rob Has a Podcast by clicking that subscribe button. All right, let's go ahead and jump into our first exit interview today. We've got Tim. Hey, what up, Tim?
What's up, Rob? In the presence of greatness, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, Tim. Excited to chat about everything that was going on. How you feeling today?
I got a little hangover, but everything's good. Everything's good, man. I'm blessed. Moving along with the day.
Yes. Okay. So many things to get into from last night's episode and the season. Could you just tell us, going into Tribal, I don't know if we got to see you have a final conversation with everybody. How were you feeling going into that Tribal Council that we saw?
I was nervous because I thought it was Ben. That was the plan. I didn't want Ben to go home. But I was also suspicious because people weren't too gung-ho about getting Hunter out.
Yeah.
And I thought he was a huge threat. So, it felt odd to be back at Sega, but it also felt like a full circle moment that, this could be Ben or I.
Can you talk a little bit about the +1 alliance? Because it was such a big moment in the season. And I think that it was unclear for us about just how into this idea you actually were.
Yeah. Hey, how do I say this? I wasn't into it. I wasn't into the +1 alliance. You can't count out 6 people in a group of 13, especially in Survivor.
Yeah.
In all 46 seasons, that's never worked. And so when I was approached about the +1 alliance, I didn't want to give up my number 1, Ben. Why? Because I don't know these strangers. I've been competing with these guys. Why would I tell you the truth on a journey?
Yeah.
I just met you. And I didn't know if Ben was going to be there when I got back, because after the journey, Sega had to go to Tribal. So I didn't want to throw out a name where I could possibly lose, or I didn't want to give up my number 1. So I threw a name of a person I trust. That was the question. That was Q's question. Not who's your number 1. Who do you trust the most? And at that time, because of the parent bond, I trusted Maria the most. I trusted enough to say her name. And so I said it. And then by the time we got to the Murgatory Survivor Limbo, they go approach Maria, and it's messy. Why would you go to my plug before I tell my plug that I'm working with you? You don't do that. That's street code. So it was odd. And after that happened, I definitely didn't trust it because it was just too controlling.
Yeah. It's interesting because that was sort of our theory about that. Okay, well, maybe Maria wasn't your true number 1, and maybe you were kind of guarded, and I think that maybe speaks to like how you were looking at the game of that. I'm not going to give up too much information. You said in the preseason that you saw that Jesse told too much to Gabler, and you didn't want to do something like that.
Yeah. Yo, I love Jesse. First of all, I love Jesse. He played an amazing game.
How could you not?
Definitely a better game than me, right? How could you not love a guy like that? He probably would have had, if I could use a lifeline in Survivor, I would have called Jesse before my final Tribal. You don't want to give up your number 1. I just thought that it was just too much to tell. I thought, why does it matter right now? And then creating a 6 didn't matter right now, because at the end of the day, if I was someone's number 3, that means you voted out your number 2. So where it doesn't, you had no loyalty regardless.
Something that we knew or know about Hunter and Q is that they both share the bond that they're from Mississippi, and they talked in the
Yeah.
preseason that they wanted to work together. If that was something that you knew, would you maybe buy a little bit more that these guys were legit about wanting to put this thing together and sticking to it?
Yeah, I think they were tied to the hip. They were committed to each other like Mississippi boyfriends or something. It's cool, but if I knew that, I would have pitched harder to the Yanu girls. I would have pitched harder to the Yanu girls like you need to roll with the Siga boys and vote out one of your own. I
Mhm.
think that the Mississippi thing probably kept them really bonded and maybe why he didn't see Hunter as a threat when he had lost to Hunter majority of the season in these big challenges. So, um, yeah, I would have pitched to the Yanu girls even harder and said roll with the Sega boys, and that way, when we get back to camp, they would be the swing vote between Sega and Nami.
Also in the preseason, you talked about how that you didn't really think you should go on the journey. You wanted to sort of sit back, and then if people
Yeah.
were going on the journey, you wanted to see what their story was and sort of like, okay, determine who was telling the truth. But
Yeah.
when Hunter said, hey, does anybody want to go on the journey? You raised your hand to go. Why did you want to go on the journey at that point?
We had the day before we used our shot in the dark, Sega. And we said if the next boat comes, this is the person that goes on the journey. And whatever side I picked, I had one. So I would go on the next journey. So I was really just following up with the commitment that we made at the
Got it.
camp like 2 days ago. I didn't really care to go or to not go, but it was also our first loss. So I was like, I feel okay with the tribe. Let me go try my hand at the journey.
Okay. Could you tell us a little bit about the gem vote, the first time that Sega goes to tribal council? Because we had a lot of questions about how that all came together. Not so much from your perspective, but did
Yeah.
you get a sense of how Maria and Charlie ended up getting on board with voting out Gem?
Well, yeah, because Maria and I talked about the Jim vote. I knew that Maria had the extra vote, and by the time Jim had, lied to me about having it or trying to pin it on me, Maria was confident that she was going to put 2 votes on Jim, and so that was all the security I needed, and I just added my vote. And Ben didn't have a vote, so we
Yeah.
knew we needed an extra vote from somewhere to go on Jim just to make sure that she would be the vote out and not Ben.
Did you ever get from Maria why she wanted to use her extra vote to get Gem out?
No, I mean, from what I remember, Maria said we couldn't trust a person like that in the merge. She'd be a liability.
Mhm.
And that's not captured in the edit, but when she committed to putting 2 votes on her, that was the rationale I remember her telling me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I believed it. I trusted her enough. So I said, well, it's not me. I'm not the first vote. That's fine.
You also had a conversation with Jem where you said to her like, "Hey, I think you are the person that hid the beware advantage." Did other people end up thinking that too?
No, I don't think anyone else approached her about it. Definitely. I don't think that anyone had, Jim and I, we could talk to each other honestly. There was no
Yeah.
filter when Jim and I spoke to each other. That's why I felt like I could approach her and ask her about it. Nobody else had the inkling or let alone asked her, but I remember Charlie, Ben, and I talking about someone moved it. It's too, you guys dug in a big hole. Someone had to move it.
I want to go back to at the Mergatory where, okay,
Yeah.
you're part of the group that ultimately is going to decide who is going to be the person to go home. And there was a lot of conversation of, hey, who is the person from Sega that's on the outs? Give us the name. And it took a
Yeah.
long time for ultimately for you all to say that it was going to be Mariah. Could you
Yeah.
sense that things that this was where the vote was going to go, that they wanted to take out Mariah then?
I knew that they were nervous about Mo and what took us so long to give up a name. But in my opinion, I feel like we didn't have to give up a name. Are we playing Survivor or not? Why do I need to tell y'all who I think y'all should vote for? That doesn't make any sense. And so when we left the merge feast, everybody had a clear understanding of who they were voting for. It was two names out there, Mo or Venus. And we went around the entire table, Rob, and everyone said Mo or Venus.
Yes.
And by the time we get back to the camp, it's Mo. And
Hmm.
when I left merge feast, it was Venus. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. We didn't get to see where you all ultimately agreed for Mariah. Could you talk a little bit about how the rest of SIGA got on board to vote Mariah at that tribal council?
So that day was so chaotic. I think that day is downplayed in the episode, but that day was so chaotic because there were swirling conversations from tribe to tribe, and the people that weren't safe were trying to figure out who is actually going to go tonight. Maria and I chatted, and that's when the +1 came up. And she's like, do you want to go with this? Do you trust this? I feel like they can go far. I'm like, I trust it, but I don't think we need to take one of our own. And she's like, well, maybe we have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, all right. And so she says, I'll tell the boys, you tell Mo. And I went and told Mo, I said, they're coming for you. You might want to play the shot in the dark. And Maria told Ben and Charlie that we'd be voting Mo.
Did your group have any conversation about who you thought was going to go home from the second tribal council?
Oh, and my vote?
Yes.
Not as a,
Or on the
and
beach that day. Yeah.
yeah, not as a group. And that what was so fishy. I had individual conversations. I had a talk with Tiffany that it would be Hunter at the end of the challenge. If you go back, we're sitting on the platform. And at that point, that's when we talk about Hunter being the biggest threat. If he loses, we got to get him out. I also had an individual conversation with Quintavious, and that's the one that's captured on the episode. And I don't agree. Hunter's a threat. He's beat you the entire season. He ain't beat me
Yeah.
the entire season, but I think he's a threat. He's alone. Let's get him now. And he was really tied to the +6 alliance. But it
Mm-hmm.
was about a threat to me. It wasn't about anybody's alliance.
Yeah. But from the other group, did you all talk about who you thought was going to go home from the other group that you weren't in?
Oh, no. That's what's so crazy about Survivor. No, I didn't talk to Charlie, Tevin, Maria's group at all. We didn't have any conversation. We went our separate ways.
Okay. But the people that you were with, did you speculate who was going to be the person to go home from that group?
People I was with, they speculated Ben.
Yes.
I told Ben, and I said, Ben, I'm not voting for you. Let's vote out Hunter.
Yeah.
And so that was the only conversation. It was these isolated conversations.
Yeah. Tim, you talked so much about your family and being a dad, and it really came through how important that is for you. We heard that you missed your family quite a bit. How hard was that for you during this process?
It was difficult, man. I think I'm with my family a lot when I'm not traveling for work. So picking the kids up, doing homework, feeding them, bathing them, taking them to baseball practice. It was a big gap because people think you have access to these people while you're in the jungle, and you don't. You're only talking to these strangers, these castaways. And so I think about day 9, day 10, I'm like, I'm losing my mind, and I'm like rethinking how I need to be or continue to be present when I get back home, not traveling so much and being able to have that control over my schedule and not only negotiate a salary, but negotiating time was a big deal for me. But day 10, I remember telling production, please do not ask me anything about my wife or my kids. I don't want to be emotional. I want to play. Let's play.
Yeah. Okay. Kind of a personal question, but
yeah, sure.
you were praying to the Tiki Man for a certain outcome. Did it happen? Did you get your wish?
Shout out to the Tiki Man for him and I naming. Yeah, naming that. We named the episode. No, I did not poop until right before the flight back to LA. I could not
Okay.
aqua dump. I mean, it's like I wasn't eating enough
Even out of
out
the
there.
game. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I had to get out of the game, yo. And like it was before we were boarding from Fiji.
Okay.
Did I have a moment in the restroom? And
It was meant to be.
yeah, unpleasant but meant to be.
Okay. All right. Tim, really nice to talk to you.
Too, Rob.
That you were, very inspiring as
Thank
a
you.
dad. And so all the best to you and the family outside the show. Okay.
Thanks so much, Rob. You are a legend. Thanks for taking some time to talk to me today, and I hope to meet you again.
All right, Tim, appreciate it. See you soon. Okay. Bye.
See you. Thanks.
Hey, Soda, what's going on? Rob Cesternino, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. How are you?
Very good. Nice to talk to a fellow Long Island survivor.
Yes.
Okay. Soda, yes, so many questions for you about everything that went on. And I guess my first thing is that we saw that, the call came from inside the house. It was Tevin, who you were closest with, seemingly, who ended up putting this together. With hindsight, was there anything that you could have seen to show you that Tevin might have been working to conspire against you?
That's a great question. In terms of our like split groups, like after we won the challenge or whatever, um, no. But when we were one whole group, like merged, I would like sometimes go over to like a group that he was talking to and he would get up and leave. Like that was like,
Yeah.
huh, I was very curious. And then what they didn't show is I actually like pulled him aside. I was like, I can't go to sleep like thinking about this because this is a one person who I actually like. We connect on a deep level about being minorities, about being on the show and being minorities, about being big personalities, about, just trying to connect to the world. So I was like, I'm actually like in a soul way connected to this person. So like this ain't gonna work. Like what's really going on? We spent like a 40 minutes in the forest under the moonlight, like
Yeah.
crying. I was like, what is happening? He's like, I just don't trust you, you and Venus, da 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 da. And I was like, okay, well, like we need to work together here because I'm really loyal and like I don't like feeling like I don't have my person out here, like, so those were definitely some like little buzzers, but by the time we had like gotten split up and everything, I thought it was like
Hmm.
I thought it was an understanding that we all wanted the same person out. Like there was no signs. There were no signs on that beach
Yeah.
that he was turning against me at
And
all.
so for you, Tevin was number one, and you had no thoughts about getting rid of him, right?
No, I had no thoughts about getting rid of him, but he was number one, but he was my number one by like day 2, day 3.
Yes.
He wasn't my original
What
number
about by day 14?
one. LOL. No, he's not my number one by day 14, but
Well, who was
um
your number one?
by day 14, I mean like if had I not gotten voted out, it would have been him and Hunter, yeah. But
Yeah.
now that I'm voted out.
Well,
Yeah.
sure. Now's a different story. But at that point, because that as a viewer, it seemed odd that he would be so worried about you, but as a threat. But maybe because he got to know you the best, that he saw you as the biggest threat.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think so. Like I've heard some of his confessionals saying, like she's a social butterfly and she's talking to everyone and da 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 da. And I was like, that's fair. There could be two social butterflies. You could hide behind one, or you could feel threatened by that and need to take it out. And clearly that, the latter is what happened.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that Tevin seemed frustrated with was after the vote with Charlie voted for Venus, and Venus said that she thought it was you. Tevin seemed to express, here we go again with this. That do you feel like that the your relationship with Venus was taxing to Tevin?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, and that's a lot of what wasn't shown is like day one, Venus and I were like this, like we
Yeah.
were an alliance. I was actually like one of the only people to talk to her and give her the time of day. Like she wasn't really wanting to hear what other people had to say, especially after that princess comment. And so like he noticed it right away. And I tried to bridge them together. Honestly, I tried to go in between Tevin and Venus and be like, you guys should talk together because she felt like he didn't like her, which was accurate. And like, I was like, just give it a chance, which is why you see that deleted scene of Tevin and Venus talking. It's because I said, go talk,
Yeah.
same thing between Brandon and Venus. I was like, go talk. Cause Brandon was like, yo, she partied, you know what I'm saying? And so like, even after Tevin and Venus talked, he was still like, I don't know, maybe I could work with her, but I still don't trust her. And then I would have to go and kind of like after day 2, when I realized that people really didn't want to work with Venus. Hunter didn't, Tevin didn't, like it was a majority of my tribe. I had to start distancing myself from her. But by that time, the seed had already been planted. Like Tevin was really like, oh, she keeps walking off with Venus. Like, what's happening
Mhm.
still after day 2, day 3? And I'm like, I have to still talk to her. Like, I have to still make it look like we are as close as we were on day 1, because I can't have her going rogue, even though she went rogue anyway. Like,
Mhm.
I need, and so he was like, I don't trust Soda. Look at them going off again. Look at them going off again. It's like, she was constantly trying to like pull me and be like, yo, let's talk, let's talk. And I'm like, I don't want to go down with a sinking ship,
Yeah.
but like, okay, I have no choice. This is Survivor. You don't say no necessarily.
How was your working relationship with Venus? Because we certainly saw where there were moments where you're not on the same page, but we also saw where then last week where she is talking to you about, hey, we should vote out Charlie, and you seem to be entertaining that idea. That did you have like a decent enough working relationship with Venus?
No. No, even when I was sitting there and saying like, "Oh, you're not wrong about that." That's also a part of the game. You have to sit there and you have to look like you're with whatever conversation is going on. It was like me, her, Kenzie. I don't even remember who else was there. I'm like Maria or
Mhm.
something. All the girls talking, and I was like, "Okay, this could become something." Right? I can't close my ears to any of these conversations happening. So that's what I was doing when I was saying that. We really didn't have any really working relationship. There were a lot of things I felt like that happened that like how like they would show us like fighting, like I wasn't like going to her and like making fights happen. She would be like approaching me and saying like, oh, like you ran over my toe, or like you're not talking to me, why aren't you talking to me, and like stuff like that. And I would be like, okay, I'm trying to be Switzerland. Like I'm trying to be Switzerland. Like, listen, your feelings are valid. We keep winning. I don't think we have to talk. And I'm obviously like gonna set my boundary to be like, you can't talk to me like that. You know what I mean? Like, and be a little firm, but it's also Survivor. You have to be
Mhm.
very delicate, even if somebody is being very like this. Um, so because of that, those dynamics, because of like the emotional management, because I I really did not necessarily want to work with her. We didn't have an actual working. All that Nami strong stuff was like never real. Like it was
Yeah.
never once we merged. No.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about Hunter? Because I feel like that we saw how Hunter felt about the songs, but also like we saw how Hunter felt about like that he wanted to be number 1 with Tevin,
Yeah.
and he saw you as sort of like an obstacle to that. But I feel like we never quite saw how you felt about Hunter.
Yeah, no, I adored Hunter. Honestly, we vibed like that. Again, the power of editing, like you can clearly see when Hunter's putting his head down, like next to the broom on the wall, like the broom is there. That's not at the same moment where I'm singing the song, because Venus is using the broom when
Mhm.
I'm singing the song. It's not
Yeah.
happening at the same time. Hunter was not that annoyed at the songs. He even sang a song with me before. Like I
Mhm.
started singing one of his favorite songs, Fill Up My Cup, which also happens to be a hymnal, which is probably why he knows it. And we
Yeah.
sang together and I cried and I was like, oh my God, Hunter. Like we vibed. He was very chill. He worked very hard around camp, like very hard. And it was part of his strategy, yes, but he also just built stuff for fun. So I would just
Mhm.
watch, like, what are you doing now? Like, and
Mhm.
I trusted him automatically because Tevin trusted him. So
Yeah. Okay. So Liz is somebody also that I would love to get your opinion on. Liz, and we saw Liz also that everybody wanted to work with Tevin and they felt like that you were an obstacle to that. And we saw Liz in the episode feel like that, okay, this is a good thing for me to get Soda out. What kind of relationship did you have with Liz?
so like Liz and I talked a lot early on in the game just about our lives. Like we have pretty similar early upbringings. Foundationally, our lives were pretty similar in our early stages. And so we just bonded over talking about life, really. We didn't talk much strategy. I did try, but she was like a little walnut. Like you couldn't really crack her open and see what was inside all the time. Um, and so I actually really didn't know that that she was like so wanting to get me out. I did pick up on her trying to throw me under the bus to other people in very subtle ways. Like there was one night where we were by the fire. This was early on in Nami because Randon was still there. And it looked like everybody was asleep. Never assume people are asleep by the fire, like when you talk shit. But oh, sorry. But she was like, Soda, you're amazing. Like your life, your story, what you've been through, like you need to win. You're gonna win. I don't need to win. I don't need the money. So my job here on the island is to help get you to the end. Because if you get to the end, you're winning. Like
Mhm.
out loud, like at the fire circle. I was like, ooh, she wants me gone so bad. But I didn't think anything of it because she hadn't been talking strategy with me at that point. It was like getting a bomb and then complete radio silence. It was
Mhm.
very strange.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about some of the bonds that you were making in the merge tribe? I know you didn't have a ton of time there with everybody, but can you tell us about some of the other relationships that you had?
Yeah, I didn't have a ton of time, but Charlie is somebody who like I really, really, really wanted to work with from Jump Street with him with that Blues Clues shirt on. I was the first one to tell him that he had a Blues Clues shirt on. Because he's very calm and stoic. And like I wanted to work with Maria. We did like try to talk at some times. She was also a little bit more protective of information, where Charlie was, you could see why they worked well together because she was a little more cagey and Charlie was like, oh yeah, let me have all my options open. Um, and what else? Who else? Tiffany, I wanted to work with. We didn't really have a chance to develop that, but I wanted to work with her. And then Tim and I talked a lot, especially when it was the merge vote between Mariah and Venus. Essentially, we were going back and forth and back and forth. But he was somebody I wanted to work with as well.
Can you talk a little bit about where, like let's say hypothetically this split vote didn't happen and okay, so now you are faced with, okay, 12 people left in the game. What was going to be your Soda plan to move forward into the late stages of the game from that point?
I mean, I didn't necessarily have a fully long-term plan except to stick with Kevin and Hunter because I knew they were really, really tight to each other. And I wanted to be linked to some people who were really tight to each other, even if that meant that I was on the bottom of that, which I didn't necessarily, I didn't feel like I was on the bottom of that, but like Hunter was like, ooh, Soda's in my way. So the dynamics there could have been interesting, but I would have been willing to be loyal about that. I would have continued trying to get out, some of my Nami that weren't working with me well, and just trying to hide behind bigger threats. And if I had more time to adapt to the clearly high level of gameplay that was
Yeah.
happening and had a chance to learn the game in real time and flex my muscles in that group of people, I think I could have made it very well, very far because I'm a very adaptable person. So,
So, what was the most important thing about your game and your story that we didn't get to see in the show?
oh, that's a great question. Um, I guess the most important thing about like my game and is the really the like the why I played. Like I feel like personally I represent like the every woman, who struggles through just trying to go from surviving to thriving, like dealing
Yeah.
with these not knowing where you come from. Like I was born to two addict parents who didn't know I existed, you know what I mean? And transferring myself from there to being raised in a home of people who are all suffering from mental health. I had a lot of challenges in my adulthood that a lot of people face, like anxiety, trying to reach goals when you don't have a family, building your own family, trusting people, trusting anyone, trusting someone. And like, I spent the last 5, 6 years figuring out who I am. And that's who I wanted to put on the island. I wouldn't have gone if I wasn't ready. And so I
Yeah.
went out there to represent the every woman, to really represent the women of, the Black community who just hold up so much and are expected to hold up and do so much without being acknowledged for it and just going. Like the reason I was there is to just prove that like absolutely anything is possible, but it's up to you. Like what happened to you is not your fault, but what you do with it absolutely is. And that's the key to getting further ahead in life. And so I wish it was shown, but I intend to get my story out there either way for anyone who's a part of Club Soda and wants to listen. So
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that you were taken out so soon. And I know everybody says it, but that sometimes that these threats, and I feel like that you just, have it all in terms of being able to win this game. I think it was, you couldn't hide it.
yeah. And That's okay. I said,
Yeah.
you know, if it shoots me in
It's
the
a
foot, me
stupid game.
myself,
It's a stupid
happy.
game. Yeah. You know, it's a stupid game. You can be too good at it and lose. Okay. All
I
right.
know.
So nice to talk to you. All the best outside the show. Okay.
Thank you. You
All right.
too.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
All right, great job by Tim and Soda here on the double exit interview. Hope you enjoyed them too. I love to read your comments, so go ahead and keep them coming. You might see a few replies from me as well, and we appreciate it when you hit like. And if you haven't done so yet, hit that subscribe button. What are you waiting for? All right, thank you so much for joining us for the exit interview. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.